What? Isn't Lily Tomlin your spirituality?
Schizophrenia.
That's a little humor. That's all. A little French. Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's cute.
What we picked is the Imitation of Christ. Now, this is my copy. A little dog-eared and taped up again several times. This was a present from the seminary. Okay, here, this is it for 4 years. Okay. And we used it. I took it at face value then. And chapter a day, that was it, man. Just didn't have a choice. Okay, let's do it. Over the years, it seems to be, I lose it for a couple years, then I find it again. And at the end of our aspirancy, near the end of it, I found it again. I was cleaning out a drawer. Oh, there's the little sucker right there. So I take it, well, maybe you want me to look at this again. So I'm currently book 3, chapter 49 on it. But so that's the main reason I picked it, because I know this book. I've had it for years, and diving into it more, the spirituality is pretty interesting. There's my notes. Okay, Jan will start off with a little bit on the altar.
So Thomas A. Kempis was born in 1380 and lived until 1471, like old age of 91. Not much is known about him, other than that his family name was Hammerstone. He was born in
Is that
Germany.
pronounced right? Hamilton? Hamilton? I don't know.
And he lived in Holland. At a very young age, he entered a Dutch Augustinian monastery run by the Brethren of the Common Life. At age 19, he was ordained a priest in 1413, and when he entered the monastery, he never left the walls of the monastery after that. He stayed in the monastery his whole life.
Oh, wow.
It's 91 when he
Thomas was given several jobs in the monastery, including tutor, confessor, instructor to the novices, and everything else, and some administration work. But he always preferred his cell to doing anything else in the monastery. And eventually they recognized his talent for deep thought, and they kind of left him alone. Some people called him a mystic. Some don't. There's a little argument in that area there. But he did practice at the time was a mystical spirituality that was going around. And it best described as being absorbed in God or being lost in God. And me, I barely approach the fringes of meditation. And that's an effort and a half for me to even get there. But when I do, I enjoy it a lot. It's very pleasing to the soul. And I can, on that level, relate a little bit to why he preferred that to everything else. So it was a very good place to be.
The book, The Imitation of Christ, has been described as a charming instruction on how to love God. In other words, a manual for devotion designed to help our soul achieve holiness and communion with God.
Oh. Yes, we did. Nope. Okay, go ahead.
St. Thomas More said it's a book that every person should own. Ignatius of Loyola read a chapter daily. Methodist founder John Wesley said it was the best summary of Christian life he'd ever read. So it has quite a following of those people who relied on it.
It's been translated to over 50 languages. By 1779, over 1,800 editions have been published. It's also the most, it may not be right now, but up to date, it has been the most translated book since the Bible. Because that could change. Kempis himself said, We must imitate Christ's life and his ways if we are to be truly enlightened and set free from the darkness of our own minds. Now, I mentioned before when I first got the book, I just took it at face value and read it. However, I would now approach it with historical critical method. Being that the time it was written in, the literary form, who wrote it. Come on, the guy never stepped outside the monastery. Hardly any, very little human contact with the real world. So he tends to like the word darkness or evil ways, stuff like in this nature. And I take it with a grain of salt now. So I can see his point behind the words, so to speak. That, yeah, I may have a dark side, but I'm not a bad person. If you read it literally, so to speak, sometimes you could kind of take it that way. That we need to flog ourselves, so to speak, to purify ourselves. So you have to be a little bit careful sometimes when you read the words.
So it's broken down into a group of books, 114 chapters total. And book 1 is on useful limitations for spiritual life. And that's like gentle warning, that's what that means. Book 2, on concerning the interior things. Book 3, interior consolation. And the last book is focused on the Blessed Sacrament.
Now, the first 2 books, they kind of get grouped together because they're written more like short sermons and reflections of that nature. 3 and 4, they take more of a conversational outlook. In other words, you open the book there in 3 or 4, and it'll say Christ, is Christ speaking to you? And then it will say disciple, which is your response to it. Or it will just say Christ, the whole chapter, or it will say the disciple, talking the whole chapter. So it's kind of a more personal approach to it.
So the unique thing about this is the imitation in self. You're looking into yourself and finding your spirituality within. Unlike Francis de Sales, that many ascend to God by the ladder of creatures, meaning on the outward, in combination with community and being around people and doing things, where this is more of an inward approach. It's a self-knowledge of our own soul.
Oh.
And an example of that would be, in truth, sublime words make not a man holy and just, but a virtuous life make him dear to God. I would rather feel compunction than to know its definition. Thinking about internal.
Many of his ideas were taken from St. Augustine, and he's not alone in that. Many of the thinkers and the scholars took from St. Augustine. And,
When was he born? Again, what was his
1380. 1380. Yeah.
PM.
And during that time period, St. Augustine was widely quoted. One thing that Augustine says, what is the soul that knows so many things and that is ignorant of what it is in itself and how it is made? And Kempis, maybe as a reply to that, in Book 1, Chapter 1, says, seek to wean yourself from love of things visible in order to come to things invisible. what is inside. To know the soul. Do we, we are ignorant, at least I am for sure, of my soul and what's going on there. I use the book as a schedule to set my priorities of my soul. Now we do that anyway. We set priorities on our schedule, when we wake up in the morning, when we go shopping, whatever, but we are creatures of habit to set priorities. But do we set priorities for our soul? Do we really say, for my soul today, this is my list? No, I don't think we really do. And that's an improvement. And the book, that's what I use it a lot for. Now I may be known for leaning a little bit to the left. And this book is somewhat conservative, but I draw on that because it brings me back to the middle, so to speak, in setting the priorities for my soul. And I'll use it that way. So when he does mention something very conservative, I won't throw it out. I'll use it, I'll think about it, then I'll throw it out. No, I will make use of it. And that's what the book is very good at.
As Samuel speak forward and your servant is listening, another example of this out of this chapter, book 3, chapter 1 is, blessed is the soul which serveth the Lord speaking within her, and from his mouth receiveth the word of comfort. Blessed ears who receive the accents of the divine whisper, and take no notice of the whispers of the world. Blessed ears indeed who hearken to truth, teaching itself within, and not to the voice which soundeth without. And blessed eyes which are shut to outward things, but attended to what's interior.
Imitation does not exclude the happiness of a soul discovers in the love for God, surpassing any love for people. The love of God, separate from the happiness He gives us, is impossible. And I think I and we are the people that separate that happiness from the love of God. I think we do that. Example that I brought up today, Jesus every day is asking me, who do you say that I am? And my behaviors sometimes said, well, answer that, but sometimes my behavior will say, I don't know you. Example, okay, I'm on the freeway, some guy cuts me off. I don't know Jesus at that point. Yeah. So, those little things, again, priorities of the soul. It's not really worth it to do anything with the driver. It's probably not safe to do anything about it. But to show to me and to everybody around me that yes, you are the Son of God. Okay? And that should be a top priority of my soul. Every day is showing that. And again, I'll finish this book and I'll put it away probably for a year again, and I'll find it again and dig it up. But it really hits a lot of these interior points, not exterior. Inside. Now, I feel guilty sometimes when I read that. Oops. I'm not there yet. That's not on my list.
Before the Eucharist, the Imitation of Christ gives you the great goodness and the endless love that God shows us in the Eucharist. So book 4.
Don't lose my place. Oh God, I gotta start over.
Sorry. Thou commandest me to approach thee with confidence, in speaking of the Eucharist, that if I would have part with thee, and to receive the food of immortality, I desire to obtain life and glory everlasting. Come, thou says to me, all that you labor and are burdened, and I will refresh you. It's written in Old English, as you can say. So,
And that's another thing, the language kind of takes me back too, because I take note of that. And I tend to notice it more. Because the Bible I use for meditation is written the same way, 1962 St. Joseph's edition. It has nice pictures too. But in that book, it advocates going to the sacrament and preparing yourself for communion. Now, that one struck me last time I read it because I'm thinking, wait a minute. Back in St. Christopher's in West Covina, I'm sitting at that desk, and Sister Mary Milk of Magnesia, that steel ruler, and I got the scars to prove it. But she was pushing, prepare yourself properly for communion. At home on Sunday, before you even get in the car. And we know about trying to pack the kids up Sunday morning, get everybody in the car, okay? It's rough. But take the time to prepare yourself at home before you even get to church. And I said, wow, I've blown that one completely. I mean, what little preparation I do right there in church. So again, a priority I have to renew again for my soul. And it's worth it. I understand it differently now. Okay? I don't have to have my knuckles wrapped anymore for it. But it is important. It's the top, it's going to be a top priority for me now. So I will be trying to get back in that habit of sitting at home with my morning meditation. Anyway, why not take a few minutes, and I'm sure it's going to change the picture of what communion is, what the Eucharist really is, what that love really is for me. This quote is an introduction from the 17th century edition. The Imitation, it is a book for balanced souls and for those who have entered the way of perfection. It is a book for the weak and wavering soul, and in no matter what state, may open any of its pages and find just what is needed. It's true back then, and I pray, I hope, I know that it will be true for the other generations, because we will be passing the book on.
It's like
Hopefully,
Oprah, huh?
you will pass the book on. Don't keep it, use it, and pass it on.
Thank you. It's like Oprah.
Thank you, guys.
And that's your holiness for the week. So you don't have to do any more.
Thank you,
Thank you. It has some pictures too.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this since the vision.
Yes.
I used to read that too. It's very good book.
Yes.
Is this what the book, there's like those seminarians all get this book? Just to
Well,
follow-
no, the
Just to
Claretians.
have to.
We just look up there. It was mandatory.
I didn't get it in the seminary, but I got it from my pastor before I went to the seminary.
There you go.
It's a good.
So it's sort of like a pre.
Yeah.
Actually, when I saw that in the store, I looked, it's the same thing. The cover's a little different.
Yeah, it was a leather.
It's the same company, so I guess they never changed the presses.
Same picture?
Must
Yeah,
save
pictures are
saving
very
money.
similar. Yeah, I was surprised. I said, find something in regular English, and all I
Yeah.
got is old English.
I couldn't find it.
Mine
So,
didn't have pictures, but
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the same one in the contract.
Is it because